Hi everyone, my name's Jaden Spence. It's been a very long time since I've posted anything, and this isn't really going to be anything that's music focused or guitar focused. Aside from the fact that there's like all of these things in the background, I've got a little bit of decorations. I'm getting used to this webcam still, like it doesn't do the same things that I'm used to it doing. As you can see, it's a little bit messy. I've just finished up my uni course, so waiting for pretty much everything to be graded. But I've gotten lots of work as an audio engineer in the past. Okay, since August, like end of August, start of September. So September, October, November, December. I've been an audio engineer for about 3 months. That's what I would say, and I've learned a lot from being a live sound engineer for many kinds of bands. I've worked with international acts, as in both bands that came from overseas and bands that have been overseas. Um, I've done cover bands, I've done originals bands, I've done veterans, I've done people that are playing like their second or third ever show. So in 3 months, I've already learned a lot, especially after doing like my course. Like I'm actually in the industry now, so I'm still very new to it, but there's a lot of things that I've learned, and I think I want to pass this on to anyone else that wants to go into the industry. So I've got a list of things that's what I've learned about being an audio engineer. The first thing, and there's a couple of points where I kind of bring this up again, so I'll have to edit this all together. But first thing that I've learned, idiot check everything. And when we say idiot check, we're not saying like we're not trying to call anyone an idiot. It's just what we mean. It's mean like there's something that we might have forgotten. Most recent example I can think of is that there was someone who had a drum pad, and that drum pad triggered samples. They needed a DI box, which I had one, and the venue had one as well. And I plugged it in, and I was thinking the volume level of this is incredibly low. So I was thinking maybe it's the drum pad. I've pumped it up, and I'm like, oh yeah, like the samples are coming through. You can hear them, but there's all of this hiss because I've turned the gain on the thing all the way up. Get through the whole gig. I don't think anyone cared too much. It was a good gig. I think everyone enjoyed it. At the moment the gig is over, I've thought DI boxes very often. I don't know if this will show up on camera. There's this little switch here, and on the top of it you can see attenuation. I'll try and get it to focus. It's got a 0 dB, and then it takes off 20 dB and 40 dB. So if you know how a pad works, that's how a pad works. And what I didn't realize is that it was padded 40 dB. Idiot check everything. Check mic lines, check instrument lines, make sure that phantom power's on, make sure that things are getting sent to the right thing, make sure foldback speakers are on. Even when turning on a PA system, you have no idea who's used it beforehand. So that brings me on to my next point, which is trust no one that has used your gear. I don't mean trust no one as in like, oh, like, everything is a lie sort of thing. What I mean is you don't know what people have done to the console that have used it before you. Pretty much every time before getting to the venue and like before turning everything on, from the last gig that was done by someone else, gains are turned up, EQs aren't reset, stuff is getting sent to the monitors. Often stuff on channels that I normally use for kick and like snare and even bass. And I don't want to be sending bass through fallback speakers unless absolutely necessary, because those speakers are very small and they can't handle bass frequencies. But that's just one of those things. You got to turn things down. I've gotten to the venue, and the top boxes have been off. So I've gone, great, all the speakers are already off. I can turn the console on, because you need to turn the console on before the speakers, and you got to turn the console off after the speakers. However, because there's subwoofers at this venue, sometimes those subwoofers have been left on. So I go turn on the console thinking it's fine, get this massive pop, which, by the way, if you turned up to like a professional festival and you turned on the console after speakers and the speakers were powered and they hear a pop, you'll be kicked off. It's just one of those things that you should know. So that's on me, and that's why I say to everyone else, idiot check everything, because every gig I've done has always been something like that, where like something has been reset, or I've gone, oh wait, I haven't even turned on the high pass filters. So double check everything. High pass pretty much everything, especially if it's a smaller venue. You want to like take up as little bass room, especially in a smaller venue, because the bass is going to overpower everything, and especially when you're working with stage volume as is. The last thing you want to be doing is having a rumble of bass. I pretty much high pass everything that isn't the bass. The bass is the only thing that I don't high pass. It brings me on to my next point as well. Or just a segue, since I was already talking about the DI. Always bring a spare DI with you. One extra is better than like only the one available, even if you don't need it. So I've got this one. This one stays in my studio. The venue that I work at very often like has a DI there. I always bring an extra one. You always want an extra DI specifically, but in general, next point, bring more than you need. I have so many microphones that I like bring to the venue myself. I want to have as much control over the sound as possible, because the less control I have, the more I am potentially hindering both the sound of the venue and my performance as an audio engineer. So I always want to chuck, even if it's not a good mic, just a mic is better than no mic at all. I see some people that like try to like dangle microphones. You can do that with some. I try to avoid it. Having extra stands, extra vocal mics, because I'm always getting to shows, and rarely ever am I doing a gig where there's only one singer. There's always going to be one or two backing. There's some times where it's like pretty much everyone else in the band has a vocal microphone. So do that. My next point, and this kind of goes into once again the bring more than you need, is the 2 points that are kind of together, which is what I have written down. Expect that the bands themselves won't bring enough of their own stuff. If something can be forgotten, it will be forgotten. That's just something that I have learned. If something can be forgotten, it will be. Drum keys are always getting forgotten. Always bring extra mic leads. Bring your adapters for like phones, for like backing tracks and whatnot, because that's often something that gets forgotten. Someone will always forget something. And once again, leading on from that previous point, be ready to improvise / expect the unexpected or the unwanted. There's been a couple times where I've had to like invent a guitar cable because someone didn't have a guitar cable. So I've had like a TRS or TS to XLR cable, and then I've had to put an adapter like on that's like another one, and then I've basically invented a whole new guitar cable because someone's forgotten them. So just always having like little stuff like that. Be ready to basically invent new technology. I've had to dangle a condenser microphone over a cab. That was not enjoyable. But yeah, it's part of the job. And my last point, and this is one that's often you're going to run into, especially when you're starting out as an engineer. Sometimes you'll come away from gigs going like, man, the sound wasn't really that good. I didn't really like the sound of it. Some bands just don't sound good. And this isn't like they're a terrible band. Sometimes they just having a rough night. Maybe something happened earlier that day that's really set them off and they haven't been able to shake it. Sometimes the venue doesn't match their style. Sometimes they're not really feeling up to it. Sometimes they're just really new, really green. What I've often found is throughout nights, sometimes I'll mix 3 bands and one of them might not sound as good, and then the other 2 sound a lot better. And I often hear from people like, yeah, they didn't sound great, but I think that was partly due to the fact of the band themselves. So you could like be doing the same thing that you're doing for every other band, so they won't sound good. Just kind of, one of the inherent things about mixing is you're at the mercy of how good the bands are. Just like bands are at the mercy of how good the audio engineer is. Bonus thing that I didn't actually write down, always look for feedback. And if you're always getting told the mix sounded good, I hate that, because like sometimes and very often people will just say that just to be nice. I'm guilty of doing that. Yeah, no, you guys sounded good. But, like I said, nothing wrong with sounding bad. You can only get better. Like, I'm never gonna knock people for giving it a fair shake. I would rather hear someone say that sounded terrible, or even people that are like, it sounded good, try this thing. I've had people that aren't even like qualified audio engineers that have taught me stuff about doing audio. And that's another thing. Listen to everyone. Everyone has advice, regardless of whether it's good or bad. I think you should listen to everyone's advice and then be able to decide from there whether you think you should listen to that or not. I've heard people give advice that's like, I'm not going to do that. And I've heard other people who aren't qualified audio engineers that say to do this thing. And I'm like, that's such a fantastic idea. Yeah, I'm going to start doing that. So listen to everyone, because you never know whether someone's like right about something or not. Anyway, sort of tangenty sort of video, whatever. This something that I really wanted to do is talk about experience as a live sound engineer. There's a lot of stuff that you can learn from it, and it's a good industry to get into. The world's always looking for them. So I hope some of these tips were helpful. If you have any more tips, leave them down in the comments, and I'll see you next time. Peace out.